The story continues as the Church of Divine Light sends a messenger to the king of Barkula after learning about the special toilets that use purification magic in his kingdom. The church, feeling threatened, asks the Pope in Sidonia to intervene. As a result, the Pope declares that purification magic is a gift from their god and that only they should be allowed to use it. They demand the king hand over the patents for the purification magic and reveal who created the devices. The king, however, is not intimidated by the church's demands. He listens to them, but ultimately decides to ignore their requests. The church's messenger is stunned by the king's defiance and threatens to send all the priests back to Onia. But the king remains firm, even encouraging the messenger to go ahead with the threat. Takumi, hearing about the king's decision, feels relieved that the king didn't betray him. However, he's worried about the conflict that could arise if the Church of Divine Light turns against Barkula. The church has a lot of power, especially with the backing of Sidonia, and Takumi fears that this might lead to major problems for Barkula. But Peepak reassures him, telling him not to worry. There are other religions in the world, like the Church of Creation, which is also quite strong in Barkula. Though the Church of Divine Light has widespread influence, it's not the only church in the kingdom, so its absence won't cause much of a problem. What's more, the Church of Creation provides recovery magic for free, unlike the Church of Divine Light, which charges high fees for its holy magic. Peepak believes the Church of Divine Light will eventually lose its influence in Barkula, and Takumi won't have to deal with them much longer. The reason Peepak has come to see Takumi is that he had previously presented Takumi's toilet and refrigerator inventions to the king. The king was so impressed by these inventions that he asked Peepak to bring Takumi to meet him. Takumi is nervous about meeting such an important person, but Peepak assures him that the king isn't forcing him to come. Takumi has the option to refuse. However, Peepak urges him to accept the meeting since it would help improve his company's relationship with the royal capital. Takumi reluctantly agrees to the meeting. Later that evening, Takumi talks to Sophia and Maria about the trip. He asks if they would be willing to accompany him to the royal capital. Both Sophia and Maria are excited and agree to go with him. Takumi suggests they depart a week from now, but they have a lot to prepare before then. The journey will take about 7 days, so Maria needs to pack plenty of food for the trip. Meanwhile, Takumi plans to work on new cloaks for Maria and Sophia. He has received some dark magic stones from Peepak, and if he uses them, he can enchant the cloaks with a perception-blocking spell. This spell will be useful in combat. But Takumi's main reason for making the cloaks is to protect Sophia and Maria. Sophia and Maria head out to do some shopping, and while picking out some fruit, Maria complains that Takumi doesn't believe in himself enough. Sophia agrees and starts listing all of Takumi's good qualities. She mentions his looks, his talent for alchemy. Maria starts to notice how excited Sophia gets when talking about Takumi, and she begins to wonder if Sophia might be in love with him. Sophia quickly denies this and insists that she only loves Takumi as her master. But Maria, with a knowing smile, is certain there's a love story hiding underneath. Takumi is back at the church in town, kneeling before the statue of Nolan to pray. Soon, a bright light shines down on him, and he finds himself in Nolan's domain. She greets him warmly, saying it's been a while since they last spoke. She heard about his invitation to the royal capital and assumes he's come to pray for safe travels. Nolan tells Takumi that if he's here for that, he should have brought an offering for her. Takumi, however, tells her that he's not here for that. He has some questions he wants to ask her. He mentions that the goddess worshipped by the Church of Divine Light is named Annette, and he wonders if there really is another goddess besides Nolan. Nolan confidently tells him that she is the only true goddess. When Takumi presses further, asking about Annette, Nolan doesn't want to reveal too much. She tells him that he will find out about Annette when the time comes. Next, Takumi asks Nolan if she knows what has happened to the other heroes who were summoned along with him. It's been 10 months since Takumi arrived, and he hasn't heard anyone talk about the heroes. Nolan admits that when she summoned Takumi, she messed with time a little. She sent him 1 year into the past, so technically, the other heroes haven't been summoned yet. Takumi is confused and asks why Nolan would go through all the trouble of sending him back in time. However, Nolan just says that she won't answer that question. She tells Takumi that his time is up. She also asks him to bring her sweets as an offering when he visits her next. Takumi tries to ask more questions, but before he can, Nolan lightly taps him on the head, knocking him back down to the mortal world. Takumi wakes up on the floor of the church. He decides to head home and finish making the new cloaks he planned. When he gives them the cloaks, both of them love the designs, which makes Takumi happy. But there's something else he wants to work on before their trip. He takes Maria and Sophia to his workshop and shows them his idea to make a carriage for himself. Since they've been traveling a lot, Takumi thinks it would be more efficient to have their own comfortable carriage instead of borrowing one every time. However, there's one problem. He doesn't have a horse. He plans to borrow one from the guild, but Maria tells him they don't need to do that. Maria is excited and says that they can just go to the Forest of Death outside Bolton, which has many monsters. If they search long enough, they might find a unicorn or a drake horse. These types of horses would be much faster than regular monster horses. They headed to the forest. Takumi asks Sophia if drake horses are really that much faster than the regular monster horses they get from the guild. Sophia confirms that they are indeed much faster. As they head into the forest, Maple calls out to them, urging them to hurry up so they can find a horse already. Maple is clearly excited. Before the others could catch up to Maple, Sophia senses a monster nearby. Suddenly, a bush wolf jumps out of the bushes, but instead of attacking, it runs past them. Takumi proudly points out that the wolf didn't see them because of their anti-perception cloaks. Sophia is impressed with how effective the cloaks are, but suggests that they take them off so they can actually fight some monsters. After taking off their cloaks, Sophia quickly slays a boar in one blow. Maria is excited because she can prepare the boar meat for their trip. However, Maple is growing impatient and tells everyone to hurry up. Just then, Takumi spots a dead tree on the ground and thinks it might be useful for the carriage he's building. He and Sophia prepare to chop it up. Maria is busy with the meat, and Takumi is focused on the tree, so Maple decides to go ahead by herself to find a horse. As Maple makes her way deeper into the forest, she notices a lot of dead trees in the area. She wonders what could have caused so many trees to die. Continuing on, she eventually finds a drake lying on the ground, looking injured. Maple cautiously approaches the drake and asks if it's wounded. The drake fires a lightning strike at her. Maple quickly backs away, but she realizes that the drake is just scared because it's hurt. She understands how it feels, remembering how she felt before Takumi found her. Maple reassures the drake. As Maple waits for help, two termite monsters suddenly appear. Maple realizes these termites are the ones that injured the drake. Quickly, she uses her webs to trap the termites and tosses their bodies in front of the drake, where they get electrocuted. However, more termites are coming, and Maple quickly weaves a barrier out of silk to protect herself and the drake. The barrier buys them some time, but it won't last long. Eventually, the termites break through. Panicking, Maple tries to call Takumi for help, but there's no response. Worry creeps in as she fears he's too distracted by the tree he found to remember her. Hopelessness sets in, and just as the termites break through the barrier, Maple shuts her eyes, expecting the worst. When she opens her eyes again, she finds Takumi standing over her, and a wave of relief washes over her. She jumps into his arms, overjoyed that he came to her rescue. Takumi explains that her barrier blocked her mana signal, which is why he couldn't hear her. Once he realized she was out of contact, he rushed to her last known location. Takumi then notices the injured drake behind Maple. She asks him to help the drake, but the drake repels him, still distrustful. Sophia warns Takumi that they need to leave soon. More termites could be nearby. However, if they leave the drake behind, it will certainly die. Takumi decides to use his pocket dimension to keep the drake safe until they can return home. Sophia cautions that storing such a high-level beast without a contract will strain Takumi's body, but Takumi is confident and proceeds. As soon as he places the drake in the pocket dimension, Takumi collapses from the exertion and faints. The girls bring Takumi back home, but despite 12 hours passing, he still hasn't woken up. The strain from the drake being in the pocket dimension continues to drain Takumi's energy. Since he's unconscious, he can't open the barrier to release the drake. Sophia contacts Maple and asks her to open it from the inside. Maple agrees, but warns that the drake might be frightened by the sudden change in environment. To keep the drake calm, Maple sets up a tent in the front yard before opening the pocket dimension. Meanwhile, Maria goes to buy medical supplies and asks Sophia to stay by Takumi's side. Later that night, Takumi finally wakes up. He goes outside to find the drake, and Maple has been speaking to it about Takumi while they waited. After introducing himself, Takumi asks the drake if it would form a contract with him. The drake agrees, trusting Maple's judgment. With the contract formed, Takumi casts a healing spell, High Heal, and the drake's wounds are instantly healed. It stands up fully recovered. Takumi realizes he needs to name the drake. Following the theme from Maple's name, he names the drake Camellia, after a tree that keeps its leaves year-round. Maple is happy to see Camellia healed. With everything settled, Maria calls everyone inside for dinner, having made a delicious meal. Takumi, who hadn't eaten all day, is relieved to finally enjoy a meal.